It's Notre Dame versus Purdue, and as we always start our game of the week with the Stats Guru Corner. Don says the history after 87 head-to-head matchups, Notre Dame leads the series 59-26-2. Purdue at home versus Notre Dame is 13-26-2. The Irish have won the last 8 matchups. This is the first time the Irish have played at Ross-Ade Stadium since 2013. Another interesting thing here, according to ESPN FPI, there is only a 26.7% chance of an upset this week. We had to check after Northern Illinois became the first MAC school to beat a top 5 opponent since 1978, snapping a 0-50 drought. That is insane.
Damn. They also got the they also have added Notre Dame to the boneyard already.
Yep. Let's go.
Well, here we go.
Man. I know, right?
Purdue versus Notre Dame. Sora gave us the breakdown.
All right. So, case for Notre Dame is, we already talked, everybody knows about it. It was a big headline. They suffered an embarrassing loss at home to Northern Illinois, where they paid them $1.4 million to play. On top of this, Riley Leonard is injured. He's still expected to play. Now, Leonard's performance was not the best. 20 for 32, 163 yards, and 2 picks. Jeremiah Love was able to replicate what he did against the Aggies week 1, but his counterpart, Jadarian Love, not so much. He only rushed the ball 4 times and had like 20 yards. NIU also just dominated Notre Dame in all categories. Time of possession, passing, rushing. They had the ball for 10 more minutes than Notre Dame. So while Notre Dame does have more snaps, they have more, snap counts, they have more experience. The players, are more used to this than Purdue, because Purdue's only played 1 game.
Mm-hmm.
Notre Dame's at least played 2 games. One of them being top-ranked Aggies in a sold-out crowd, capacity of 102,000, and there was 107,000 people in Kyle Field. So they're used to, the hostile environment. They've played a tough game. I don't know if you can say that they had a quote-unquote like hangover when NIU came, if Riley Leonard's injury was just more than we thought. But there's no reason why Jadarian Love should only have 4 rushes. Him and Jeremiah Love are the reasons why Notre Dame beat the Aggies. They got to get both of their running backs going exactly like they did against A&M. And the defense also, they need to cause some turnovers. They were able to pick off the Aggies twice, but they couldn't get any turnovers in NIU or against NIU. So it's pretty much for Notre Dame. They have to you got to wonder what Riley Leonard's health is going to look like. You got to wonder what he's going to, look like in this game. But Love and why can I not find him? I literally just said his name.
Jadarian Price?
Yeah, thank you. Love and Price. I literally just lost him in here. You need to get them going more, because the way they ran against A&M was some of the best contact balance we've ever seen. And Dante and I were even saying that during the play-by-play. For Purdue,
probably the best in the country.
For Purdue, it was only 1 game. It was against Indiana State Sycamore. But Hudson Card, who Dante, I believe it was Dante, you've been talking about him for a hot minute.
Mm-hmm.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, he went 24 for 25 with 273 yards and 4 touchdowns. They also, they had 2 rushers for over 80 yards. One of them being Elijah Jackson, who only touched the ball 3 times. They spread the ball out quite well. 12 different receivers caught it. Purdue defense also did quite well. They had 3 sacks on the day. But again, the opponent was inferior. It was Indiana State Sycamore. I don't know if anybody in the comments or even right here in chat or any of the guys up on the panel, if they can tell me one player, I'll Venmo them $10 right now. Okay, moving on. So they still went 7 for 12 on first downs. On third downs, and they only held Indiana State to 1 out of 12 third downs. So the reps do matter against that. The defense did get some reps at least against that. They only held them to 1 completed third down. That's pretty good. Time of possession was equal with 30-29 going to Sycamore and 29-31 going to Purdue. Notre Dame doesn't really have any elite receivers. You don't know what Riley Leonard's going to look like, healthy or injured. You know, if you can channel the run game, that helps you on defense. Unfortunately, and my pick is Notre Dame, Notre Dame's got some pretty good defensive players on that. And again, if they can establish the running game, I don't see why Notre Dame shouldn't be able to win this. And if you don't think that Marcus Freeman didn't light a fire under somebody's ass after the NIU loss,
he handled that press conference with the grace, like getting up there and saying that like you can't even blame your players. Nobody can blame anybody else. It all falls back on me at the end of the day. He took it on the chin like a man. So
straight up, this has been eating him alive. For them.
Brian Kelly would have never said nothing like that.
Absolutely. Brian Kelly would have slammed in the water bottle, would have had a 20-foot.
He would have said something about executing his players.
Yeah, pretty much. Again. But yeah, so I think Notre Dame's going to have an extra chip on their shoulder. I don't think they can afford to lose this, especially not being in a conference now. Notre Dame pretty much is going to have a chip on their shoulder the rest of the season if they want to even make the playoffs.
Facts. Khalid, what's your outlook looking like? Who you got?
Also, if you could hold the reveal to the very end, that'd be awesome.
Okay.
Also, I just stumbled upon a very interesting statistic, and I'm only bringing this up because Notre Dame just played A&M a couple weeks ago, and Sora brought up A&M. But that number 1 recruiting class of all time that Jimbo Fisher brought in, those guys, they've never won a road game in their career. Just wanted to say that.
Wait, say that one more time?
The number 1 recruiting class of all time that Jimbo Fisher brought in before that 5-7 season, those guys in that recruiting class have not won a single road game in their career.
Damn. Oh my God. Okay.
Maybe you could stay on the couch, Jimbo. It's fine.
Yeah. So that's a fun little statistic.
I don't think it's that fun.
I mean,
fun little nuggets.
It could be fun for y'all. Definitely not for me.
Fun little nuggets.
Anyways, Fighting Irish and Boilermakers. Notre Dame. They are the laughingstock of college football right now. Maybe it's A&M by extension because Notre Dame just lost to NIU and we just lost to Notre Dame the week before. Either way, the loss to NIU was unacceptable and quite alarming for where this team is actually at, as well as A&M. But again, that's besides the point. Riley Leonard has rushed for 79 yards and a touchdown. That's kind of usual. It's what you expect from Leonard, but has not thrown a touchdown pass all season yet. He's thrown just over he's 38 of 62 for 321 yards and 2 interceptions. So not great, but their thing is a running game with Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price, which y'all talked about on the live stream when they played A&M. Just the way that they're able to absorb contact and run through it and pick up yards, beyond the first tackler. Clemson transfer wide receiver Bo Collins leads in receiving with 10 catches and 107 yards, and this is just a loaded defense on paper. Their linebackers, at every single level, really, they have a ton of dogs. RJ Oben and Howard Cross on the defensive line, Jack Kaiser, Drake Bowen, and Kingston Viliamu-Asa at linebacker, and then Xavier Watts and Ben Morrison, especially in the secondary. These guys are so talented. I don't think they had defensively, other than not being able to keep, Northern Illinois off the field. They didn't have a bad game. They allowed, 16 points? If you hold anyone to 16 points, you should hope that your offense can score more than that and you win the game. Exactly. I don't necessarily put most of the blame on the defense. It's really the offense that has me concerned. Something is up with Riley Leonard, and Sora, you mentioned the the shoulder injury, right? To his non-throwing shoulder. I mean, I watched some of his throws too. It seemed like he wasn't really stepping into his throws. His footwork was really goofy. I mean, early in the game, he missed a wide open Jaden Greathouse coming across the middle of the field, I believe, on like a dig route. He threw it way behind him, incomplete. What would have been a first down. You know, running the ball he seems to be fine. I know that like last year he had an ankle injury, so I don't know exactly what it is, if it's his non-throwing shoulder that we kind of know about, or if there's something else that like is just causing him to be sloppy in the passing game, because that stinker that offense put up against Northern Illinois was very concerning. And going over to the flip side with Purdue, we have a small sample size to examine for them. They've only played one game, but it was a 49-0 win against Indiana State. So there's not too much to go off of. Hudson Card, former Texas quarterback. I feel like there's a lot of those guys out there in college football, former Texas quarterbacks. He was 24 of 25, great game, only got sacked once, very clinical. He also ran for 16 yards. Running back 𝗕𝘂𝘀𝗶𝗲𝗀𝗀 had 11 carries for 89 yards. And then you talked about Elijah Jackson, who has home run hitting potential. He had a 69-yard run as well as a touchdown. And no pass catcher for Purdue had more than one touchdown. So while Card threw a total of 4 of them, not one guy caught multiple, which, I mean, that just goes to show how well they'd spread the ball around. Granted, again, it's against Indiana State, but still, it's impressive that they were able to produce and do it so like efficiently, you know, with Hudson Card's completion percentage, that they didn't have to rely on one guy too much. And for me, the one thing that I was looking for is how well their defense did, especially on the defensive line. They lost, probably future first-round pick off the edge, and Nick Scorton, who led the Big Ten in sacks last year with 10 to Texas A&M as he transferred. But sophomore edge Will Held racked up 2 sacks and 7 total tackles, which were both team highs in the win against Indiana State. And then they have 2 safeties in Dylan Tiananmen, who is a true freshman phenom last year, who's going to continue to play a big role in this defense. And then Antonio Stevens, their other safety, who had a great outing, also racking up 7 tackles and did not allow a single completion on 2 targets against Indiana State. So for me, like looking at this, Purdue has an efficient offense with veterans, in the backfield and at quarterback, and their defense has some emerging pieces with talented players in the secondary, along with some highly touted transfers like Nyland Green coming over from Georgia, right? They added some good pieces in the secondary. The biggest thing for me is, can they stop the ground game, and can Notre Dame actually score? Because they couldn't get it done last week. So I have a feeling this is going to be a low-scoring affair. My high school principal went to Purdue. I almost went to Purdue. So give me the Boilermakers in a close one. And hey, if you call me crazy, look, Notre Dame. I'm not going to lie, I almost. They've dropped some crazy games, just like last week and Marshall a couple years ago. And let's not pretend like the Boilermakers don't know how to pull off an upset.
I was about to say, Purdue is literally the upset maker of the NCAA.
Exactly. And especially in West Lafayette. With Tyler Trent's name up in the stadium after that Ohio State upset, anything's possible. And I think that this is going to be one of those games where you're going to look back and you're going to be like, man, Purdue, they were okay that year, but they had that one marquee win, and it's Notre Dame this year. Purdue's going to win it in a close, low-scoring affair.
Yeah, so I was even saying before, like with the Missouri, I was like, this is the one that I genuinely thought I was going to switch to Purdue, but again, just that Marcus Freeman chip.
Yeah, I love Marcus Freeman, everything that he's about. I know Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois 14-16. Riley Leonard, we had high hopes for him to be really good. 2 interceptions and fumble one time, but it wasn't a lost fumble. It was just he fumbled. Notre Dame against Texas A&M had 34 carries, but they only had 28 against Northern Illinois. Little recap on Northern Illinois' wide receiver, who I think is an absolute dog, and Antario Brown. He had 2 receptions for 63 yards apiece on both of his touchdowns, and that's 126 yards total, and that was pretty much his day. One question we got to ask ourselves, is Riley Leonard overrated at this point? I know he's battling the injury, but not having any passing touchdowns at this point in time is a little sus.
Yep.
This should not have been a loss for Notre Dame in all regards. I mean, with what they have, with the kind of coach that they have, this reminds me of exactly the loss that they had 16-14 in 2012 against Stanford. I don't know if everybody remembers that game. They proceeded to play 4 ranked opponents after that and beating 3 out of 4 of those opponents and only having a loss against USC 38-27. So just a little breath of fresh air for Notre Dame for the future. Maybe this can look up for them for the rest of their season, and then maybe we'll start with Purdue. 𝗕𝘂𝘀𝗀𝗀𝗀 is coming in as the most efficient quarterback this season. When you look at it statistically, beating Indiana State 49-0. He only had a 96% completion percentage, completing 24 out of 25 of his passes for 4 touchdowns. Both of their running backs, they had 27.7 yards per carry for Elijah Jackson and 8.1 for 𝗕𝘂𝘀𝗶𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀. He's been there for a little bit. And then also wanted to highlight a defensive lineman that a lot of people aren't mentioning, and 𝗕𝙂𝘂𝘀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 will be helping anchor that defense. He was a former Auburn player. Then he went off to JUCO. He was the #1 JUCO product in the transfer portal, and now he finds himself at Purdue. So this is a guy that was a #1 guy as well. Indiana State did put up 100 yards rushing on Purdue, though. So that's one thing to keep a note. Is their rush defense a little suspect? I guess we'll figure out coming in this game. It's hard to determine after one game of play. Purdue is ranked #2 in average passing yards allowed. Again, playing just one game, but that's just something that's notable if you're looking for that side of the ball. Now let's get over to Notre Dame a little bit. With Notre Dame having the better receivers in Bo Collins and Jaden Greathouse and better defensive players in Jack Kaiser. Y'all know how much I gush over Xavier Watts. Aiden Schuler is pretty good. I'm going to just go ahead and say this. Purdue wins this game, though.
Yes!
Notre Dame will lose this game. I think Purdue's running game will sustain enough for 𝗕𝘂𝘀𝘀𝗀𝘀𝗀 to get the ball downfield. And sophomore, and I'm calling this dude out by name because how talented he is, Leland Smith, the transfer from Fullerton College, I think is going to have a big day. And the only reason I say that is I think the weakest part of this team, and we saw flashes of them, and their cornerbacks are very suspect at this point in time, and I just don't trust their DBs outside of Xavier Watts and Aiden Schuler. I don't. I think their safety room is very, very strong, but outside of that, I just don't see, and everybody forgets that 𝗕𝘂𝘀𝘀𝗀𝘀 was a Texas product that did really well while he was there and took a chance on himself and transferred to Purdue. And he had an okay year last year. First year head coach coming in, things changed for him. But again, it's got to surprise you playing any type of football for a guy to go and be 24 for 25 and have 4 touchdowns in their first game.
Yeah, no matter who that's against, that's impressive.
I think 𝗕𝘂𝘂𝘀𝘀𝗀𝘀𝗀 is ready, and unfortunately for Notre Dame, I had them as having 1 loss this year. After this, they're not a college football playoff team. They can't even sniff that. I mean, I don't think there's anything mathematically that they can do to put themselves in contention.
Oh no! If they lose this, it's over.
To be one of the 12 teams.
Joe Klatt argued that they're already in that region. SEC team versus a 1-loss Notre Dame who lost to NIU.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no. We already knew that, and it's because they're not in a conference. But we already knew that that Notre Dame would have already been in like the 10 to 12 region. So, it just depends on who that loss is against. Like if it was against a ranked USC or whatever, But against an NIU, you can already argue that they're done. But they got to run the table this entire way. So, yeah, absolutely. If they get another loss, if they lose to Purdue, it's over for Notre Dame.
Yeah.
I mean.
So let's see if the consensus agrees with me and Khalid, or if they're.
I know, right?
So Tony and Don pick.
I really thought Dante was going Notre Dame with me.
No, sir.
I'm not gonna lie. I've considered changing as well, but yeah.
Yeah. So the rest of the guys agree with you, Sora. They're gonna go Notre Dame. And the ECG pick is going to be Notre Dame. Now,
I think this is the one ECG pick that we're kind of like. I think this is the one that we're like,
I think
want to do.
This is going to be a good game, man. There's a reason why it's game of the week, and pretty much everybody had this game when I asked everybody to pick a game out of the big ones, and this was one that we circled. It's just the implications of like Notre Dame should be in the Big Ten. So whenever you see a Big Ten school play them, and Purdue is the upset masters, it makes it for a very interesting matchup.
Yeah,
it really does.